In this episode, we are summarizing the 8th episode from Season 2 of the Wire series titled Duck and Cover. The episode first aired on July 20th, 2003. In the beginning, after failing to reconcile with his ex-wife, McNulty indulges in a drinking binge and attempts to drive home drunk, resulting in a car crash. Jimmy then stops the car and gets out to check the damage. McNulty at first does not believe that he crashed his own car. McNulty does not realize he actually hit the cement pillar, and so he gets back in his car and backs up to where he started to make the turn. McNulty ends up making the turn a second time, and he ends up crashing yet again and cutting his hand the second time. Afterwards, McNulty ends up stopping by a diner. When the waitress stops by to take his order, she sees McNulty is asleep. McNulty and her end up together that same night after McNulty tries to place an order, and she replies by saying that he can have anything he wants. This intro scene does a great job at reminding the viewer who McNulty actually is. We are reminded that Jimmy McNulty is incapable of owning up to the mistakes he makes. He knows he ruined his marriage with Elena, but refuses to own up to it and grow from it. In this scene, he runs into a cement pillar on the road, and instead of calling someone to pick him up immediately, he instead doubts it ever happened and attempts to make the same turn over again, showing the viewer how stubborn and locked in his ways McNulty actually is. In another scene, Perlman discovers phone logs and photographic evidence connecting the Eastside warehouse to White Mike and Proposition Joe. Sergey's cell phone records are traced through truck rental records, revealing his frequent calls to the warehouse when containers go missing. Herc and Carver falsely report Nick's link to Frog as information obtained from an informant. The judge grants the details request for a wiretap, but requires Herc and Carver to do chores in his house as an exchange. Later on, Daniels is convinced to appeal to Rawls to transfer McNulty to the Sabatka detail, which Rawls reluctantly agrees to. Rawls knows that McNulty is a loose cannon, and that he could bring heat to his department yet again. To uncover the lost money from the surveillance bug, Herc enlists his cousin Bernard as a fake informant. Carver renames Bernard Fuzzy Dunlop. Despite initial hesitation over the made-up street name and cost, Daniels signs off on the plan, and they agree to pay Bernard 10%. Later on, Perlman meets with Bunk and Greggs again, discovering that the warehouse and apartments are also owned by the same company, raising suspicions of it being a possible brothel. They decide to have McNulty go undercover as a John to infiltrate the apartments while reporting on the Sabatka detail as well. Greggs and McNulty conduct surveillance at the apartment building's parking garage. They stop one of the Johns and gather information on how to contact the madame who manages the brothel. Remember, I am summarizing this entire series, as well as other popular works of literature, movies, and TV shows as well. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next episode or series. If you would like to see the playlists of our summaries, click on the link in the description. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter for additional content. If you find our content valuable, consider supporting us on Patreon if you can. Doing this helps my channel out tremendously. I thank you for your support. As we catch up with Freeman, Beatty, and Prez, they notice suspicious activity involving a potential container theft from a ship where Horseface works as the checker. The surveillance work is combined with wiretaps, allowing the detail to trace the container to the warehouse. As Frank sends out a second decoy container, McNulty rushes to tail it, with Beatty arranging a fictitious traffic stop to slow down the rig until McNulty can get into position. Encouraged by the other stevedores, Ziggy attempts to retaliate against Maui, but ends up stranded on a 2-story container instead. Frank, preoccupied with month-end finances, hears about the fight, but is also concerned about law enforcement monitoring his activity due to a flagged cell phone bill. Frank spots Greggs posing as an engineer on the docks to observe the smuggling operation and discovers Beatty's true assignment with the Baltimore police. Frank sets up a decoy container and arranges a meeting with the Greek using an untapped office phone. keeping the conversation secret from the detail altogether. Frank also ends up offering his brother Louis a spot on the port advisory board, but Louis declines, believing the position was offered due to Frank's contributions and insisting on an honest path instead. This infuriates Frank, who feels Louis judges his choices morally. Meanwhile, Ziggy buys a duck and entertains the stevedores with its antics at the bar. Glekas and Sergei unload a clean container, and the detail traces an angry call from them to Vandas, the same number Frank dialed. Vandas orders the container to be dumped, prompting McNulty to follow it before being called back by Daniels. Meanwhile, the detail dismisses the clean container incident as a mistake, but Freeman is satisfied with obtaining Vandas's phone number. McNulty and Beatty have a drink together and discuss their past relationships. While at the bar, McNulty calls the Madame's number and arranges a meeting. Later, he visits Beatty's home, but leaves upon seeing pictures of her children, realizing the potential consequences of getting involved with her. It is not made clear what makes McNulty feel uncomfortable. We can assume Beatty Russell's children remind McNulty of his own children and his now ruined marriage. He has hurt his own children due to his inability to be faithful to his wife. By seeing the photo of Beatty's children, he is stopped momentarily and is able to think about what he is about to do clearly. This is what leads him to flee. As we catch up with Bodie, Pooh, and Puddin', we see they are frustrated by their weak product and the resulting decline in trade. They observe another crew operating successfully on their territory, and they decide to take action. Bodie and Pooh form their own crew to confront the competitors, and they manage to drive them away. Although they are successful in their push against the other team of dealers, they know they will certainly return to retaliate eventually. Frank and Nick end up having a meeting with the Greek, who admires Frank's caution and suggests focusing on moving clean containers for a while. Nick insists on being fully paid for their work, and the Greek agrees. After Frank shows frustration, the Greek taunts him, mentioning Ziggy and suggesting that Frank should spend money on things that bring happiness to him. Perhaps a new car or a new coat. That was episode number 21, titled Duck and Cover. To watch the next or previous episode summary, click on the link in the description or at the end of this video. In the description, you will also find additional links for supporting our channel. I will see you on the next episode. Goodbye. We upload new videos every week, so subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the like button as well. Click the notification bell to be notified of when we upload these videos. See you on the next episode of Culture Screen.